Welcome back to BBC World News America. Both here in Pakistan and across the border in Afghanistan, the military strategy goes hand in hand with a campaign to win the trust and the goodwill of local people. And here things get a bit messy. America has already been heavily criticized for inflicting too many civilian casualties in its airstrikes. And now the BBC has uncovered evidence of systematic abuse of Afghan prisoners held in American custody at the Bagram air base near Kabul. Our correspondent Ian Pannell has this exclusive report.
It's a picture of one man's story of abuse. Noor Habib says he was chained to the ceiling of his cell and forced to stand in water for up to 6 hours at a time. He shows us his leg. Scarred, he says, from his days at the Bagram detention camp. Mohammed Nassim draws a very similar picture. These men were all held at the US-run prison in Afghanistan, and they all claim they were abused.
We were thrown on the ground and shouted at. For 16 days and 16 nights I was forced to stand. They wouldn't let me sleep. They only stopped this when my feet were so swollen I couldn't stand.
Some of them used to be with the Taliban, but they deny fighting against America, and not one of them has been charged with an offense or put on trial. One man shows us a small dark scar on his arm. It's where he says he was bitten by a guard at Bagram. They're just a handful of the former detainees who've spoken to the BBC. We've interviewed 27 people about their detention and interrogation at Bagram, all held at periods over the last 8 years. A number of allegations are repeated again and again. Physical abuse, being hit or beaten, forced to stand for hours or adopt stress positions. Some say they were forced to undress, in some cases in front of female soldiers. They talk of being deliberately deprived of sleep for days, that dogs were used to frighten or intimidate, and 4 say they were threatened with death at gunpoint.
They put a pistol in my ear. They said I had to speak or be shot.
They put guns to your head and threatened you with death. They played very loud music and put medicine in our drinks to prevent us from sleeping while they interrogated us.
They kicked me, beat me, tortured me. I was injured, and they hit me on my wounds. No one would treat animals this way.
They shoved us against the wall. They pushed us to the ground. Then they picked us up and pushed us down again. This was repeated several times.
A female soldier kicked me and said, "F you." I didn't know what that meant. I do now. The dog spit me on my feet.
During interrogation, we were ordered to kneel on the floor. The Americans sat on our shoulders. They forced us to smell something. They put wires on my back and said they would give me an electric shock, but they didn't.
Their stories have received scant attention so far. Now, for the first time, the US government is being taken to court to force it to give Bagram detainees something those at Guantanamo have: the right to a trial.
The Obama administration maintains that it has the right to take people from anywhere in any part of the world and render them to Afghanistan without any type of judicial review in any court of law. So we're quite shocked that this administration has adopted the exact same position as the Bush administration.
These revelations come at a time when President Obama is trying to reset America's relationship with the Muslim world. He's banned the use of torture and ordered the closure of Guantanamo. But here in Afghanistan, the Bagram internment camp is being expanded, and detainees continue to be held there without charge or trial.
This is Bagram. We can only show you the runway. The detention camp is kept secret. Thousands of people have been brought here, some from abroad, including at least 2 Britons. The Obama administration says they're dangerous men, terrorist suspects and enemy fighters. And it's blocking the release of photos that are believed to show abuse at Bagram.
We very much believe in the detention operations that we have at Bagram. I have no reason to believe that they are not being done according to the Army Field Manual and all the other restrictions we place upon them. But I am sure we'll take a look at what your allegations are.
Most of the detainees we interviewed said they'd been given an apology when they were released.
Sorry means nothing. If you had been in prison for 5 years and I said sorry, what would it mean to you?
As America tries harder than ever to win the war in Afghanistan, this is a controversy that threatens to damage the image of the new Obama administration. Ian Pannell, BBC News, Kabul.
Well, for reaction to Ian's report that I spoke earlier to Mewaz Yassini from our studio in Kabul. He's currently the Deputy Speaker of the Afghan Assembly and he's also a candidate for the presidential election this summer. You just saw that piece by Ian Pannell. What is your reaction to it?
Thank you very much. My reaction is that those detention centers are basically illegal from the Afghan standpoint, and it is damaging the general image of the United States in the region. And obviously we have tens of cases or dozens of cases that the people of Afghanistan are very much upset with it, and it does have a very negative impact on the mentality. But there is a big but, which is that the Afghan security apparatus is also a failure, and we can remember that the jail outbreak last year in Kandahar, which ended up in the escape of hundreds of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda prisoners. So for the short time and for the interrogation, that might be an excuse that the American will have the detention center, but the local government or the Afghan government has to have its own efficient apparatus, particularly for the detention.
But so will you press for charges against the prison guards who are accused of abuse here? I mean, the Pentagon has already said that they don't want to pursue any charges, that this is not a criminal matter for them. Do you see it otherwise?
Well, I mean, it is a criminal matter, and there is no charges against them, and there is no court. I mean, so nobody knows the fate of those people, and it has to be clear. If we reach to the power, we have to make things black and white, and we have to make it very, very clear. And we have to, in meanwhile, to upgrade our security forces, that those cases can be dealt with locally.
Let's move on to the broader issue here, Mr. Yassani. 7.5 years after the Taliban were removed from power by the US, they now seem to be resurgent. We have as many attacks in these weeks by the Taliban against coalition forces as we had at the height of the war in 2001. Why has that happened?
Well, first of all, I mean, the job which was about to be done 7 years back, that was not done. There was not enough coordination, and we missed the opportunity. And if we miss the current opportunity, we will face more of those problems in the future, and that will increase day by day. The government was inefficient. The coalition was not having coordination with the local government. The strategic planning was not there, and the Taliban's prisoner was tortured by the local governments everywhere, from the north to the south. And people got some sort of intimidation in the event because of the revenge, to take the revenge back. So all of those inefficiency in lack of strategy, lack of coordination, and lack of enough attention caused all of those increase in the violence or fighting back by the Taliban.
And in one line, please, Mr. Yassani, do you think that the increase of American and coalition troops on the ground helps or hinders the cause of your country? Briefly.
In short term, yes, it does help to ensure the security for the election, but in long term, we have to go to increase our own security apparatus standards, and that is the only one way.
Mewaz Yassani, presidential candidate in the forthcoming Afghan elections. Thanks very much for joining us from Kabul.